and I was watching him very closely. I saw like his hands shaking a bit. Diddy's breaking down, and this trial might be too much for him to handle. Word is, he suffered a heart attack in court right after his own son dropped a bombshell about him. The same son who stood by him through it all. What's up, y'all? It's King Kong, and right now I'm taking over my pop's Instagram. But now, if what people are saying is true, this could be the ultimate betrayal. Let's get into it. Family ties and lies. Diddy's trial began on May 12, 2025 in Manhattan Federal Court with his family members, including his children, attending to show support. Christian, Justin, Quincy, Chance, Jesse, and Delilah have all been spotted in the courtroom creating this image of family unity during this extremely serious trial. But here's where things get spicy. While Diddy is facing charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution, his son, Christian King Combs, is dealing with his own legal drama. And when I say drama, I mean drama. In April 2024, Christian Combs got hit with a lawsuit filed by Grace O'Mark, a former yacht stewardess. Now, I'ma keep this family friendly because we got young viewers. But basically, this woman claims Christian assaulted her during a yacht trip in 2022. And get this, she says the yacht was chartered by none other than Papa Diddy himself. Like father, like son. I'm just asking questions here. O'Mark's lawsuit states that what was supposed to be a wholesome family excursion turned into a hedonistic environment real quick. The lawsuit alleges Christian, who was heavily intoxicated, pressured her to take a shot that might have been spiked, and then things got really inappropriate real fast. Y'all? This lawsuit includes photos of bruises on O'Mark's arm that she says came from Christian grabbing her. There's even supposed to be an audio recording that captures her rejecting his advances. CNN verified a transcript of this audio. This ain't just hearsay, folks. But wait, it gets worse. O'Mark claims that after she reported the incident to the yacht's captain, nothing happened. Why? Because she alleges Diddy paid the crew to keep their mouths shut. I mean, imagine having a dad who would cover up your mess like that. Must be nice to have that kind of privilege, right? Meanwhile, regular folks would be getting the book thrown at them. And what did Christian's lawyer say about all this? Aaron Dyer, who represents both Christian and Diddy, convenient, right? Called the lawsuit lewd and meritless and accused the plaintiff's attorney of filing it just for media attention. Classic deflection tactics, if you ask me. Now, during Diddy's ongoing trial, Christian has been spotted reading his father's federal indictment in court. I mean, imagine sitting there reading about all the mess your dad is accused of doing. That's gotta be awkward, right? But here's where things get really interesting. On May 17, 2025, Christian Combs was recorded outside the federal courthouse responding to a bystander. When someone called him Young Diddy and expressed confidence that his dad would be exonerated, Christian replied, "Yes, sir," and added, "They ain't talking about nothing in court." Oh, really, Christian? They ain't talking about nothing in court. I guess Cassie Ventura's testimony describing years of abuse and coerced participation in your dad's freak-offs is nothing to you. I guess Daniel Phillips' testimony about being paid to have intimate relations with Cassie while your dad watched is nothing. I guess Don Richards' testimony about witnessing your dad hit Cassie with a skillet is nothing to the audacity. The nerve of this man to say they ain't talking about nothing when these women are reliving their trauma on the stand. It just shows the complete disconnection from reality that money and power can create. Speaking of Christian's behavior during this trial, let's talk about the fact that while his dad is locked up facing life in prison, Christian was out here partying with his girlfriend on Instagram. Like, seriously, your dad is fighting for his life and you're out here popping bottles and flexing on the gram? Make it make sense. And it's not just Christian. His brothers, Justin and Quincy, have been spotted partying with Diddy's girlfriend, Young Miami. The audacity. While most people would be laying low if their family was going through such a public scandal, these guys are just living it up like nothing's happening. That's that privilege talking, y'all. It gives real Succession vibes. Like these are the real-life Roy children, completely detached from the reality that normal people face. Imagine if one of us regular folks had our parent facing federal charges. We'd be stressed out of our minds not posting up at the club. They say, "We have some information that you would want." I said, "What is that?" They said, "Well, the new lawsuit." Christian Combs was on the yacht, and while right before molesting or sexually assaulting this woman, he was actually rapping in the studio. We have the song he was rapping. There's two audios. There's just the song, and then there is another audio that contains screams and whatever of the girl. They said, "We're gonna give you the audio of the song." I'm like, okay. Then they give me more information. He was rapping over, and this is where I'm like, guess what he was rapping over? Cassie, me and you beats. I'm serious. Can we just pause and process this for a minute? According to this claim, Christian was allegedly rapping over one of Cassie's beats right before the alleged assault. Cassie, the same woman who has accused his father of years of abuse, The symbolism there is just, it's too much. The disrespect, the entitlement, it's giving generational patterns of behavior. And let's not forget that while Christian is busy flaunting his privileged lifestyle, people are suffering real consequences from the actions of the Combs family. In one lawsuit, a former security guard claims that after reporting Christian's alleged assault to a supervisor, he was blacklisted from the security industry. Think about that. Someone's entire career potentially ruined because they dared to speak up about witnessing something inappropriate. Now, I want to clarify that being accused doesn't make you guilty. We have a justice system for a reason. But the pattern here is troubling, especially when you consider what's coming out in Diddy's trial right now. Speaking of patterns, let's talk about another wild claim that came out regarding the other Combs brother. Rodney Lil Rod Jones, a music producer who worked with Diddy, filed a lawsuit alleging that Justin Combs was involved in procuring underage girls for parties. Again, these are allegations, not proven facts. But the similar nature of these claims against multiple Combs family members raises serious questions about what was considered normal in that household. It's like, if you grow up watching certain behaviors, you might start to think that's just how the world works. And that's the scary part about all of this. The potential normalization of harmful behaviors across generations. But Christian hasn't just been a silent observer in his dad's trial. He's taken action that's raised eyebrows. In November 2024, Christian took over Diddy's Instagram account to share positive content like throwback music videos. This move was criticized by many as poorly timed and manipulative, trying to rehabilitate his dad's image while serious allegations were mounting. It's giving PR stunt and not even a good one. Imagine thinking that posting some old music videos is going to make people forget about the serious federal charges your dad is facing. That's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. It's not going to fix the problem, and it might even make things worse by showing how out of touch you are. And yet, despite all these allegations and the ongoing trial, Christian continues to present himself as unbothered. It's almost like he's taking cues from his father's longtime public persona, the idea that you can just power through scandal with swagger and confidence. But here's the thing, this isn't just some celebrity gossip or a PR crisis that can be managed with the right spin. These are serious allegations with real victims who deserve to be heard. The question is, will Christian Combs ever acknowledge that? Or will he continue to stand by his father's side, dismissing the voices of those who claim they've been harmed by the Combs family? The evidence mounts. So we already talked about how Christian Combs is facing his own lawsuit from Gresso Mark. But let's dig into what that means in the context of his dad's current trial. First off, let's be clear about the timeline. Diddy was arrested on September 16, 2024 and charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. This came after federal raids on his properties in March 2024, where agents seized narcotics, weapons, and over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. I mean, who needs 1,000 bottles unless you're running some kind of operation? Meanwhile, his son Christian was busy dealing with his own legal issues. The lawsuit filed against him by Gresso Mark in April 2024 claims that he assaulted her on a yacht chartered by the Combs family in December 2022. Now here's where it gets interesting. Mark's lawsuit doesn't just name Christian, it also names Diddy as a defendant, alleging that he's liable because he chartered the yacht and created a hedonistic environment. Basically, she's saying Diddy set the stage for what allegedly happened to her. And if you look at the patterns emerging from Diddy's trial, that claim starts to make a lot more sense. Cassie Ventura's testimony describes a man who created environments where boundaries were routinely violated, often with the help of substances that made consent questionable at best. Let me paint a picture for y'all. According to Omar K's lawsuit, what was supposed to be a wholesome family excursion on this yacht turned into something very different. She claims there was a constant rotation of suspected sex workers and celebrities engaging in partying and substance use. She even suspected drinks were being tampered with, noting how women showed extreme signs of intoxication after minimal consumption. Does that sound familiar? Because it should. It eerily mirrors what witnesses have been describing in Diddy's trial about his infamous freak-offs. But let's get back to Christian's specific situation. According to the lawsuit, Christian was heavily intoxicated when he allegedly pressured Omar K to take a shot of tequila, which she suspected was spiked with substances. The lawsuit claims he then became aggressive, groped her, and attempted to force her to perform intimate acts. Omar Tay says she managed to escape when another crew member entered the room. She reported the incident to the yacht's captain the next day, but alleges that no investigation was conducted, possibly because Diddy paid the crew to stay silent. Sound familiar? Because it should. This pattern of using power and money to silence victims is exactly what prosecutors are alleging Diddy did for years. It's a family business model at this point, and the evidence doesn't stop there. Remember how I mentioned that Omar K's lawsuit includes photos of bruises? CNN verified a transcript of audio that allegedly captures her rejecting Christian's advances and asking if he was drugging her. This isn't just a case of he said, she said. There's documented evidence supporting her claims. Let's switch gears slightly and talk about another important aspect of this case: the reaction from other celebrities and the impact on Diddy's reputation and business empire. At least 18 brands and organizations have cut ties with Diddy since the allegations went public. This includes major companies and institutions that previously associated with him. Even Howard University revoked his honorary doctorate, and New York City asked for the return of the key to the city they gave him. What's interesting is that many of these brands didn't wait for a verdict. They acted based on the severity and credibility of the allegations, and that's telling. It suggests that the evidence against Diddy is compelling, enough that major corporations don't want to risk being associated with him even before a final verdict. But what about Christian? How will these allegations affect his career and reputation? So far, it seems like he's trying to maintain a facade of normalcy. But as more details emerge from both his father's trial and his own lawsuit, that's going to become increasingly difficult. According to reputation and crisis strategist Molly McPherson, the Combs name is now a liability. She states that it's going to hurt any brand that affiliates with Diddy right now and in the future, and by extension, that includes his children, especially those like Christian who are facing their own allegations. McPherson describes how Diddy embodied his brand with Bad Boy Records representing an edgy energy, but now that same energy is crucifying him in terms of public perception. She believes the Diddy name is a tainted, toxic name for good that won't recover anytime soon. And let's be real, if brands are distancing themselves from Diddy, they're certainly not going to be eager to work with his son, who's facing similar allegations. Christian's music career could be seriously impacted by all of this, regardless of the outcome of his lawsuit or his father's trial. But beyond the business implications, there's a more important aspect to consider here: the human cost. If the allegations against both Diddy and Christian are true, then multiple people have been seriously harmed, and that harm doesn't just disappear when the news cycle moves on. Omar K claims the alleged incident with Christian led to severe mental health issues, including anxiety, panic attacks, an eating disorder, and epileptic seizures. She was fired from her job in May 2023, adding financial strain to her trauma. Similarly, Cassie Ventura testified about the lasting impact of the alleged abuse she suffered. She described feeling worthless and disgusting after being forced to participate in freak-offs. She spoke about having suicidal thoughts and needing trauma therapy in 2023. These are real people with real lives that have been profoundly affected. And when Christian dismisses the testimony in his father's trial as nothing, he's dismissing the pain and trauma of these individuals. Now, let's get into some of the more technical aspects of this case. DJ Academics discussed the likelihood of Diddy beating all his charges and provided some interesting insights. Do you think he's going to beat the case? So beating the case is not guilty on all counts. Right. Absolutely not. I think he's going to get a guilty verdict somewhere, but I don't think the top counts are going to count or are going to matter. Right now, there's no way. So the RICO would be the top count. Yeah, and one-man RICOs are actually a thing. Me and Drew Finley were talking about that. He actually represented people who had one-man RICOs. Academics makes an interesting point about one-man RICOs, which is relevant to understanding the charges against Diddy. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, and it's typically used to target organized crime, but it can also apply to an individual who runs a criminal enterprise through legitimate businesses. In Diddy's case, prosecutors are alleging that he used his business empire, Bad Boy Records, Combs Enterprises, etc., to facilitate criminal activities. And while most RICO cases involve multiple defendants, it is possible to have a one-man RICO where the other participants are unindicted co-conspirators. This is important because it means that even if Christian or other associates of Diddy aren't directly charged in the federal case, they could still be implicated as part of the alleged criminal enterprise. But given the nature of Omar K's lawsuit against Christian, which specifically implicates Diddy as well, it raises questions about how much Christian knew or didn't know about the alleged criminal activities. Additionally, Dawn Richard, a former member of Danity Kane and Diddy Dirty Money, has testified that she witnessed Combs assault Ventura, describing him as belligerent and screaming about his missing phone. She alleged Combs hit Ventura in the head and beat her on the ground. Richard also claimed that in a separate incident, Combs swung a skillet with eggs at Ventura after demanding their location, causing Ventura to drop to the ground to protect herself. This testimony corroborates Ventura's claims of physical abuse and helps establish a pattern of behavior. And this pattern is relevant to understanding the environment in which Christian grew up and the behaviors he may have observed and potentially internalized. The defense's strategy in Diddy's trial has been to acknowledge his bad behavior while denying that it rises to the level of federal crimes. They argue that while Diddy might have been a horrible boyfriend who abused drugs and couldn't control his anger, that doesn't make him guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering. Now, Diddy's team came real quick on their opening statements and said, and I thought their opening statements, to be honest with y'all, were weak. Diddy's team. I thought, okay, all they did was own up to everything. They're like, look, he was angry. He can't control his anger. He might have abused drugs and been a horrible boyfriend. Y'all gonna hear text messages and audios that make him sound like a horrible person and that he may have been all of the most horrible things you could think about him when it comes to how he dealt with the women in his life. He's owning up to it. But when it comes to these charges, one thing has nothing to do with the other. You're not going to be able to look at him at the end of this case and say that because of any audio, any video you see, or anything that we are telling you right now that is despicable. They admitted it. If he was guilty of domestic violence, we wouldn't be arguing today. It's interesting that the defense is essentially conceding that Diddy was abusive, but arguing that abuse alone doesn't constitute sex trafficking or racketeering. They're trying to draw a line between immoral behavior and criminal behavior. But as one legal commentator noted, I don't know if the jury's going to be able to separate the two. And that's a valid point. When jurors hear testimony about repeated patterns of abuse, coercion, and control, will they really be able to see that as separate from the federal charges? And what does all of this mean for Christian Combs? If his father is convicted, it could potentially strengthen Omar K's civil case against both Christian and Diddy. It would establish a pattern of behavior that makes her allegations more credible in the eyes of a jury. Moreover, if Diddy is found to have run a criminal enterprise as alleged, it raises questions about the extent to which his children, especially those who worked closely with him like Christian, were aware of or participated in these activities. As the trial continues, we can expect more revelations that may shed light on the dynamics within the Combs family and the potential involvement of Diddy's sons in the alleged criminal enterprise. The fallout and the future. Let's start with where things stand right now. Diddy's trial began on May 5, 2025 and is expected to last at least 8 weeks. That means we're still in the early stages with plenty more testimony and evidence to come. So far, the prosecution has presented a strong case with testimony from Cassie Ventura, Daniel Phillip, Don Richard, and others painting a consistent picture of Diddy as an abusive and controlling figure who used his power to coerce victims into participating in what he called freak-offs. But the defense isn't backing down. They've acknowledged Diddy's bad behavior while arguing that it doesn't constitute federal crimes like sex trafficking or racketeering. They're framing Diddy as a complicated man involved in kinky adult stuff, but not a criminal. It's a risky strategy, but one that might work with some jurors. By conceding the less serious allegations while fighting the more serious charges, they're trying to appear reasonable and honest. But will it be enough to overcome the mounting evidence against Diddy? There you go. This is really not that serious. There you go. You're flying in a prostitute. She wants to get paid. There you go. She does something she's cool with doing. You fly her back. The end. They're setting it up already like that. Yeah. Yo, we're swingers. At times we were out of town. We didn't meet other couples. We was just flying some prostitutes. Yeah, we probably flew them into some places that prostitution was illegal in. And yes, that's a federal charge. Okay, his reputation compared to what he's accused of is like, he's a little freaky motherfucker. Cool. It's an interesting take, and one that aligns with the defense's strategy. If they can convince the jury that Diddy's behavior, while freaky, was consensual and not coercive, then they might be able to beat the more serious charges like sex trafficking and racketeering. But even if Diddy is only convicted on lesser charges like transportation to engage in intimate activities for pay, he could still face up to 10 years in prison. And given his age, he's 54. Even a shorter sentence would be a significant portion of his remaining life. Moreover, a conviction for Diddy would likely further damage the Combs family's reputation, making it harder for Christian to maintain his music career and public image. Is there any coming back from this for Diddy? It's very difficult because Diddy, Sean Combs, whatever the name is now a liability. It's going to hurt any brand that affiliates with Diddy right now and in the future. I mean, Bad Boy Records. He's got a lot of other brands. He's brought a lot of people up in this industry. Are they all tainted by his name as well now? Yes. It's interesting when you look back when Sean Combs really became big. I mean, he embodied his brand. Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records. It's all about the artists representing that energy, that edgy energy. This is a crucial point. The Combs brand was built on an edgy energy that once made it appealing, but now that same energy has become toxic in light of the serious allegations. And this toxicity extends to anyone associated with the Combs name, including Christian. We're already seeing this play out. At least 18 brands and organizations have cut ties with Diddy since the allegations went public. His business empire, once valued at around $1 billion, is crumbling before our eyes. And for Christian, who's been trying to build his own career as King Combs, this presents a serious challenge. How do you establish yourself as an artist when your family name has become toxic? How do you distance yourself from your father's alleged crimes when you're facing similar allegations yourself? It's a difficult position to be in, and one that Christian seems to be handling not great. Honestly, his dismissive comment that they ain't talking about nothing in court shows a lack of understanding of the gravity of the situation. But beyond the practical implications for Christian's career, there's a deeper question here about responsibility and accountability. If the allegations against both Diddy and Christian are true, then they've caused serious harm to multiple people. And that harm deserves to be acknowledged and addressed. Instead, we're seeing denial and dismissal. We're seeing attempts to minimize serious allegations and discredit victims. We're seeing a family circling the wagons to protect their own interests rather than taking responsibility for their actions. You can do it. Well, that was an embarrassing situation for the state. I think the government, they're gonna lock in and it's gonna be all or nothing. Hey, if you don't take this pretrial plea, we are going for straight conviction and we're gonna push you under the jail or you're gonna beat us, and it is gonna be embarrassing. If Diddy is convicted, it sends a message that no one, no matter how wealthy or famous, is above the law. It tells other powerful figures in the industry that they can't use their position to abuse and exploit others without consequences. But if Diddy is acquitted despite the substantial evidence against him, it reinforces the notion that the rich and famous play by different rules. It tells victims that their voices don't matter as much as the celebrity's reputation. And for Christian Combs, the stakes are just as high. If he's found liable in Omar K's lawsuit, it could signal the end of his career before it truly begins. But more importantly, it would suggest that the patterns of behavior allegedly exhibited by his father have been passed down to the next generation. That's the most disturbing aspect of all this, the potential for harmful behaviors to be normalized and perpetuated across generations. If Christian grew up seeing women treated as objects to be used and discarded, if he saw his father using his power to silence victims, what message did that send to him about how to treat others? This isn't just speculation. Research has shown that children who witness abuse are more likely to become abusers themselves. It's a cycle that can be difficult to break unless it's acknowledged and addressed. But breaking that cycle requires taking responsibility for one's actions and making a genuine effort to change. And so far, we're not seeing that from Christian or anyone else in the Combs family. If Diddy's own legal team is acknowledging aspects of his conduct, it's increasingly difficult for Christian or anyone else to dismiss the allegations as nothing. And the public is paying attention. They're forming opinions based on the evidence and testimony being presented, and those opinions are likely to influence how they view Christian and the rest of the Combs family. And in the court of public opinion, once that damage is done, it's very difficult to undo. If you liked this video, make sure to check out the other recommended cards popping up on your screen for more similar content. You're gonna hear about my party. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me. Diddy knew an arrest was coming, but what he didn't see coming was how fast his empire would start crumbling. Now, with his back against the wall, Diddy isn't going down alone. He's naming names in court and dragging Hollywood into the fire. And trust me, you won't believe who he just exposed on the stand. Let's get into it. The celebs caught in the crossfire. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs. It's a long list already, and of course, I already know who some of these individuals are. But because of the nature of this case, we're gonna make damn sure that we're right before we do that. That's one of the lawyers involved in the case talking about how they're eventually gonna name other people besides Diddy, and then he drops this bombshell. But the names that we're gonna name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. First up, let's talk about the ones who've been straight up named as defendants in these lawsuits. Jedním z největších jmen je Jay-Z, alias Sean Carter. Podle občanskoprávní žaloby z prosince 2024 jsou Jay-Z a Diddy obviněni z omamování a chování jako 13letá dívka v roce 2000 na večírku po udílení cen MTV VMAs. Jay-Z tato obvinění důrazně popřel a je důležité poznamenat, že být jmenován v žalobě neznamená být shledán vinným. Pak tu máme Stevieho J, producenta a hvězdu reality show. Byl jmenován v žalobě Rodneyho Jonese o $30 milionů, kterou podal v únoru 2024. V ní se tvrdí, že Diddy zneužíval Stevieho k tomu, aby Jonese sváděl k homosexuálním praktikám. Stevie J popřel, že by se dopustil jakéhokoliv protiprávního jednání, kde byl obviněn ze sexuálního napadení Lizzy Gardnerové, které bylo v roce 1990 16 let. Tato žaloba byla podána na základě newyorského zákona o dospělých pozůstalých, který obětem umožňoval žalovat o dříve promlčené nároky. Harv Pierre, bývalý prezident společnosti Bad Boy Records, byl v roce 2003 ve 2 samostatných žalobách obviněn z podněcování, vykořisťování, napadení gangem a obchodování s lidmi za účelem sexuálního zneužívání 17leté dívky. Tato obvinění popřel. Jmenován byl také herec Cuba Gooding Jr. Rodney Jones Jr., známý také jako Lil Rod, obvinil Goodinga ze sexuálního obtěžování a napadení Diddyho jachty. Za zmínku stojí, že Gooding se již dříve v jiném případě přiznal k násilnému dotyku. Mezi nedávnější přírůstky na seznamu patří hráč NFL Odell Beckham Jr. a comic Drusky. Oba byli jmenováni jako žalovaní v pozměněné žalobě podané 7. března 2025 Ashley Parham a 2 nejmenovanými žalobci. Oba obvinění na sociálních sítích popřeli. Diddyho syn, Justin Dior Combs, byl Jonesem obviněn z navádění k práci, nezletilým dívkám a z toho, že byl přítomen při střelbě. Jeho právník označil tato obvinění za šílená. Justin byl spatřen spoutaný během jedné z razí v Diddyho nemovitostech, ale nebyl zatčen. A pak je tu Jacob the Jeweler, vlastním jménem Jacob Arabo. V červenci 2024 ho Adria English v žalobě obvinila z nuceného pohlavního styku na Diddyho žádost během večírků pro bílé. English tvrdí, že ho na těchto akcích viděla požívat narkotika. Jacob má již dříve odsouzení za praní špinavých peněz, ale k těmto obviněním se nevyjádřil. A teď si povíme o celebritách, které nejsou obžalovanými, ale byly v těchto soudních sporech zmíněny. Mláda Miami, jedna polovina City Girls, byla obviněna z účasti na údajné pašování drog a pobírání měsíčního honoráře jako sexuální pracovnice. Její sestřenice je také obviněna z osahávání Rodmana Jonese. Young Miami's representatives haven't commented on these allegations. Kalina Harper, a former member of Diddy Dirty Money, is mentioned as having witnessed Diddy's abuse of Cassie Ventura and later encouraging Ventura to leave. She allegedly received 58 calls and texts from Combs after Ventura filed her lawsuit. Harper has denied some of these allegations in an Instagram statement. Jimmy Iovine, co-founder of Interscope Records, is alleged to have witnessed Diddy punch Ventura at a dinner, but a deal with Interscope proceeded anyway. Iovine hasn't commented on these allegations. Lucian Grange, CEO of Universal Music Group, was originally named as a defendant, accused of aiding racketeering and trafficking, but was dropped from the lawsuit in May 2024 with prejudice. Grange called the accusations offensively false and filed a motion to dismiss. Let's not forget the celebs who've been mentioned, but aren't accused of any wrongdoing. Prince Harry is one of the most surprising names to pop up. He's mentioned in Rodney Jones's lawsuit, which alleges that Combs' associates gained access to him. But there are no specific accusations against the prince. Nicki Minaj is mentioned in passing with no wrongdoing alleged in relation to a redacted Philadelphia rapper who dated her. Usher, who we heard from earlier about living with Diddy as a teen, is mentioned as having been at a dinner where abuse was witnessed, but no wrongdoing is alleged against him. Bishop T.D. Jakes is not accused of anything, but is mentioned in Jones's filing, which alleges Combs planned to leverage their relationship to soften the impact of Cassie's lawsuit. There are also several other names that have come up in various contexts, such as the Georgia Mass Choir, Donald Lawrence, the Clark Sisters, and Smokey Norfolk, who are named in relation to professional engagements with Jones, not accused of any wrongdoing. During jury selection, potential jurors were shown a list that included even more celebrity names like Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Mike Myers, Michelle Williams, Lauren London, Dawn Richard, and Dallas Austin. This doesn't mean they're implicated. It's just to make sure jurors don't have connections or biases related to people who might come up during the trial. There's another aspect of this case that has everybody going crazy on social media, the so-called Diddy list. A viral list has circulated online, featuring names like Leonardo DiCaprio, Beyoncé, Ashton Kutcher, Paris Hilton, Howard Stern, Russell Brand, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Lopez, Russell Simmons, Usher, and Megan Fox. However, it's crucial to understand that this list is pure speculation and not based on official legal proceedings. During jury selection on May 6, 2025, potential jurors were shown a list of at least 190 names, including Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Mike Myers, Michelle Williams, Lauren London, Dawn Richard, and Dallas Austin. Specific connections mentioned include Michael B. Jordan dating Cassie Ventura in 2015, allegedly making Diddy mad, and Kid Cudi being alleged as a victim of a 2011 car bombing by Diddy as he was romantically involved with Ventura. Others have no specified relation, and their inclusion suggests potential mentions during the trial, not direct involvement. The involvement of celebrities in the Diddy case has sparked major media attention. Legal experts like Niyama Rahmani, president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, have suggested that attendees of Diddy's freak-offs could be witnesses or co-defendants. This has led to speculation and social media activity, with some celebrities like Usher and Megan Fox reportedly deleting posts, which looks like they're trying to clean up their image. There's one more thing to note. Combs filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit in January 2025 against Courtney Burgess, who alleged possessing videos of Combs assaulting minors, including celebrities. This lawsuit names Burgess, his attorney Ariel Mitchell, and News Nation for airing these claims, which Combs denies as malicious falsehoods. However, this is about Combs suing for defamation, not him exposing celebrities in court. That was a clip from an interview where Diddy looks uncomfortable when asked if he has anything to confess. This was way before all this drama popped off, but it hits different now with everything that's gone down. Now, y'all might have seen some lists floating around online with even more celebrity names. There's a viral Diddy list that includes people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Beyoncé, Ashton Kutcher, Paris Hilton, Howard Stern, Russell Brand, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Lopez, Russell Simmons, and Megan Fox. But here's the tea. These lists ain't backed by any court documents or legit sources. They're just speculation based on who's been seen at Diddy's parties over the years. What does all this mean for these celebs? Well, legal experts like Nima Rahmani, president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, have suggested that attendees of Diddy's freak-offs could be witnesses or co-defendants. This has led to a lot of speculation and social media activity, with some celebrities like Usher and Megan Fox reportedly deleting posts. But we gotta remember, being named in a lawsuit or mentioned in court documents ain't the same as being found guilty. Everyone deserves due process, and it's important not to jump to conclusions based on allegations that haven't been proven in court. Let's now talk about some serious allegations Diddy is facing right now that have sent shockwaves through Hollywood and the music industry. Inside Diddy's explosive federal trial, Sean "Diddy" Combs, the hip-hop mogul who's been running the game since the 90s, is currently locked up and facing some serious heat. The trial kicked off with jury selection on May 5, 2025 in Manhattan Federal Court. And the streets are talking, y'all. We're talking charges like trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation for prostitution. That's some heavyweight stuff that could put him behind bars for life if he's found guilty. Y'all remember how this whole mess started? It was back in November 2023 when Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex, filed a lawsuit against him alleging years of abuse. That joint was settled mad quick like the very next day. But it opened the floodgates. Since then, we've seen over 63 civil lawsuits filed against Diddy, with over 100 people claiming they got some type of beef with him dating all the way back to 1991. I moved to New York City and I lived with Sean "Puffy" Combs for a year. That's the crazy thing. Now that was Reed's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp. Yeah, that's Usher talking about his time living with Diddy as a teen. Wild, right? Reed really sent a young Usher to what they called Flavor Camp with Diddy. There you go. Flavor Camp. Yeah, that's what it was called. And you're gonna go to Puff Daddy's. Usher was just a youngin' when he moved in with Diddy, and he saw some things that had him shook. This ain't just about some wild parties, though. The feds came through and raided Diddy's cribs in both Los Angeles and Miami back in March 2024 as part of this sex trafficking investigation. Then in September 2024, they slapped him with those federal charges, and he's been locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn ever since. Judge wasn't having it with the bail request, calling Diddy a serious flight risk. As for the current situation, jury selection is still going down as of May 8, 2025. They've qualified about 45 potential jurors so far, and they're looking to finalize that jury with peremptory strikes on May 9th. If everything goes according to plan, opening statements should kick off on Monday, May 12th. But here's what's got the internet in a frenzy. During jury selection, prospective jurors were shown a list of at least 190 names, including Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, and more. That doesn't mean these celebs did anything wrong or that Diddy's exposing them. It's just standard procedure to make sure jurors don't have connections or biases related to people who might come up during the trial. Now let's talk about what these freak-off parties allegedly were. According to the prosecution, these weren't just your average turnips. They're described as elaborate, drug-fueled sexual performances that Diddy supposedly orchestrated involving coercion and threats to silence victims. The indictment claims this was all part of a criminal enterprise that ran from 2004 to 2024, with Diddy's associates and employees involved in everything from forced labor to kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. If convicted, Diddy's looking at some serious time. Life in prison is possible for the racketeering charge, a minimum of 15 years for sex trafficking, and up to 10 years for the transportation for prostitution charge. But Diddy and his legal team ain't going down without a fight. He pleaded not guilty back in March 2025 to the updated indictment, and they're trying to get the transportation charge dismissed, arguing it's targeting him because of his race and citing the statute's racist origins. They're saying his lifestyle was that of a swinger, not a criminal, and they rejected a plea deal, showing they're confident in fighting this case. Now, let's examine the implications of this case, the public response, and what it might mean for the entertainment industry moving forward. Implications and the truth behind the hype. Now, let's talk about these viral Diddy lists that have been making the rounds on social media. People are comparing them to the Jeffrey Epstein list, but there's a big difference. The Epstein list was based on actual court documents and flight logs, while these Diddy lists are mostly speculation and rumor. Y'all might have seen some wild posts on X, formerly Twitter, making all kinds of claims. For example, a post by a Therafoot doc claimed Diddy had sex tapes involving 8 celebrities, including minors, but there's no verification for this, and it's not reflected in any court proceedings. Similarly, At Awakened Outlaw mentioned lawsuits implicating high-profile figures, but again, no court evidence supports these claims. In fact, Diddy filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit in January 2025 against Courtney Burgess, who alleged possessing videos of Combs sexually assaulting minors, including celebrities. This lawsuit names Burgess, his attorney Ariel Mitchell, and News Nation for airing these claims, which Combs denies as malicious falsehoods. So Diddy's actually suing people for making these kinds of claims, not confirming them. Let's break down what we actually know from the court documents and legal proceedings. The current trial involves 5 federal counts against Diddy, 1 count of racketeering, 2 counts of sex trafficking, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The trial is expected to last at least 8 weeks, with jury selection still ongoing until May 12, 2025. The allegations center around what prosecutors call freak-off parties, which they describe as elaborate, drug-fueled sexual performances orchestrated by Diddy, involving coercion and threats to silence victims. The indictment alleges a criminal enterprise spanning from 2004 to 2024, with Diddy's associates and employees involved in various offenses. During the raids on Diddy's properties in March 2024, law enforcement seized over 100 electronic devices and interviewed more than 50 witnesses. The evidence from these raids led to the federal charges announced in September 2024. Diddy has pleaded not guilty and continues to maintain his innocence. His legal team has described his lifestyle as that of a swinger, not a criminal, and rejected a plea deal. They're also trying to get the transportation for prostitution charge dismissed, arguing it targets him due to his race and citing the statute's historical racist origins. Now, what about all these celebrities whose names have come up? As we've gone through in detail, some are named as defendants in various lawsuits. Some are mentioned as witnesses or in passing, and others are just on lists shown to potential jurors to check for biases. But none of this means Diddy is exposing them. It's just part of the legal process. Let's talk about the impact of all this on the hip-hop community and the entertainment industry as a whole. This case has sparked serious conversations about power dynamics, abuse, and accountability in the music industry. It's also raised questions about the party culture that's been glorified in hip-hop for decades. Let's also discuss the history of these allegations. While the current federal charges were announced in September 2024, the first major public accusation came from Cassie Ventura in November 2023. Her lawsuit alleged years of violent abuse and rape. It was settled for an undisclosed amount just 1 day after filing, but the damage was done. The situation got even worse when footage from 2016 was leaked in 2024 showing Diddy kicking Ventura in a hotel hallway. Diddy issued a public apology stating, but by that point, the floodgates had opened and more accusers came forward. As of April 2025, there are reportedly 63 civil lawsuits against Diddy, with more than 100 individuals either having filed or intending to file claims dating back to 1991. In February 2025 alone, 10 new lawsuits were added ahead of the deadline for New York's Gender Motivated Violence Act, which allowed victims to sue for previously time-barred claims. The media coverage has been intense, with documentaries like Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy on Peacock premiering in January 2025, and podcasts like BBC Sound's Diddy on Trial and ABC Audio's Bad Rap, the case against Diddy providing ongoing coverage of the case. But regardless of the outcome of this specific trial, the case has already had a significant impact on how we view power, celebrity, and accountability in the entertainment industry. It's led to important conversations about protecting vulnerable individuals and creating safer environments in the music business. One thing's for sure, this case isn't just about Diddy, it's about a system that allegedly enabled abuse and exploitation for decades. As one lawyer involved in the case said, "The names that we're going to name are names that will shock you. The full truth may still be coming to light." Looking ahead, what can we expect as the trial progresses? If jury selection is completed on time, opening statements are tentatively set to begin on Monday, May 12th, 2025. The trial is expected to be lengthy, with numerous witnesses and a significant amount of evidence to be presented. As the trial unfolds, we may learn more about the allegations, the evidence supporting them, and potentially more about the celebrities named in the legal documents. Given the high-profile nature of the case, it's likely that media coverage will continue to be extensive. However, as responsible consumers of information, it's crucial to rely on verified sources and approach the information with a critical eye. The case involves serious allegations that, if proven true, involve real victims who have suffered real harm. It's important to remember the human element amid the sensationalism that often surrounds celebrity cases. In terms of potential outcomes, Combs faces severe penalties if convicted. Life in prison is possible for racketeering. There's a 15-year minimum for sex trafficking and a 10-year maximum for transportation for prostitution. However, it's important to remember that in the U.S. legal system, all defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It will be up to the prosecution to prove its case and up to the jury to determine if the evidence meets this high standard. 8. Here's the real talk. When Diddy's name popped up in them legal docs, he ain't the only one catching heat. Some of the celebs listed, they could be looking at serious legal smoke if them claims stick. If you're named as a defendant or accused of doing dirt, the feds might come knocking. But even for the ones not directly charged, just being tied to a case this wild, that's a reputation hit you don't bounce back from easy. See, in the industry, your image is everything. One minute you're doing sold-out shows and red carpets, next minute brands ghost you. Fans turn cold, and your name's trending for all the wrong reasons. And for some of these celebs who just got mentioned in passing, they might not be in trouble legally, but people still side-eye you when your name's floating in mess like this. Now step back and look at the big picture. This ain't just about Diddy. If what's being said turns out true, the whole industry gotta answer for the shady stuff that's been going on behind closed doors. People tired of the silence and the power games. Folks are calling for real change, real protections for the ones coming up, the ones who usually get used and tossed aside. And Diddy's lawyers are saying the charges are racially motivated. They're pointing fingers at the old laws being used, ones that got deep racist roots. Whether that holds up in court or not, it does bring up something real. We've been seeing how the justice system hits different depending on who you are. Ain't nothing new, but this case is throwing it right in the spotlight again. But don't get it twisted. Under all this drama, there's real pain, real victims, people who say they went through hell. So while the media's out here hyping every twist like it's a movie, we gotta stay focused on what matters. Facts over gossip, truth over noise. What are your thoughts on the celebrities named in the Diddy case? Do you think the truth will finally come out? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to click on the cards on screen for more deep dives like this one.